Last Sunday, a mass murderer was stopped and 15 seconds into his rampage in Indiana. What stopped the carnage? A legally armed citizen with the courage to step into the fight.
But first, if you have legal matters that involve firearms, then you need to call California firearms lawyer John Dillon. If you have questions about red flag laws, gun registration, gun transportation, or maybe you need to know that your guns are California compliant, you need to call our trusted firearms attorney, John Dillon. John Dillon specializes in California gun laws. Just call 760-642-7150 or visit his website at dillonlawgp.com. All right, so I have a trivia question for you.
Yes, sir.
How many situations where a gun was used actually saved someone's life?
Oh, I don't know. Do you know the answer?
Okay,
wait. Okay. So the question is, how many? Well, that's tough. How do you determine that? How many times?
Because they've been talking about it. I can't quite. It's over. The number is astronomical.
Well, so the statistic I do know is that studies, independent, studies from academia and government, CDC, FBI, that sort of thing. Studies show that between 1.5 million times a year and 3 million times a year, someone uses a firearm to prevent a violent crime. Is that the stat?
How come we don't talk about that?
Listen, if you watch my interviews on any, I say it all the time.
Even on TV?
I agree, Dave. Oh, yeah. We do not talk about that nearly enough because it doesn't fit the narrative.
Right. And if you throw that to somebody that's against guns, then they get mad at you and you're a racist.
Yeah, well, in the vast majority of those too, the gun's never fired. They don't have to shoot anybody.
Right.
It's just pulling the gun out stops the whatever was happening.
But if I was a gun advocate, and I know you do because you're a serious one, that'd be. I mean, I would. That's all I would talk about.
1.5 to 3 million times a year.
I almost crashed my car when
1.5 to 3 million times a year, someone uses a firearm to stop or prevent a
fatal situation.
Yeah, and now that's a real. Now just to be clear, that's an extremely broad term. So it's everything from, hey, you're killing me right now, I'm going to use lethal force with my firearm, all the way down to, hey, you're threatening me. I believe you're going to, hurt me, and therefore I'm telling you right now I have a firearm and nothing happens.
Right.
It's a really broad term.
But it
still
doesn't make any difference.
Right.
The excuse isn't relevant. It's how many lives were saved versus lost.
Exactly right.
I just had to bring it up because I don't know why I haven't heard this. I know, and I listen to you like church.
Lives and dignity. Yeah. It saves lives and dignity. What I mean by someone asked me about that. What do I mean by dignity? That is a very polite way of talking about a sexual assault.
Right.
So any kind of violent crime, 1.5 million times a year to 3 million times a year. And again, this isn't the NRA that did this study. This is Gleck out of Florida State University.
Wouldn't you think that they would have done that?
Well, it's just what I'm saying is if the NRA did it, there's every reason to believe that it could probably be a little biased.
Right, gotcha.
But if FSU does it, Florida State University and their criminology department does it, there's no reason to believe there's any bias.
Well, the other thing, and I think even the CDC numbers came out like that too.
Exactly.
Because I've heard stuff everywhere from 500,000 to 2.5 million. The thing, it's hard to get those numbers exactly because a lot of that stuff doesn't get reported.
Right.
If it does get reported, if the gun's not fired, the police, may or may not record that. And then even if the police do record it, they don't consistently report that stuff out to a federal entity necessarily. So it's hard to get, exactly. That's why the range is so broad.
Right.
But
that's why it's so broad.
But those numbers, even a million.
Those numbers are so huge.
Yeah.
It's not even. You could, if it were a tenth of that, it's a huge story.
I was just going to say, I don't care if it's 100 people. That's 100 lives saved.
Right.
Well, I think people are seeing it now, and it's hard, especially with this last thing in Indiana. And you're going to see more and more of that, too, because we're going to have more of the shootings. The shootings aren't going to stop.
So let's talk about this thing in Indiana.
All right.
So what happened was there was a mall in Indiana, and a very, very typical situation with these mass killings. A guy who had sent out tons of warning signs Goes to this mall. He has 2 rifles. My understanding is at least one of them was an AR pattern rifle.
Mm-hmm.
He had a ton of ammo. He had a pistol. He went into the men's room and prepared himself. Spent like 45 minutes or something like that in the men's room. Came out and started shooting. Started shooting in a mall.
Well, it's where the most people are.
And my understanding as well is that the mall was a gun-free zone.
Mm-hmm.
So they said, hey, don't bring your guns.
Well, it says right on the window.
Yeah. So it's a gun-free zone. Everything about this was typical. Typical. Except for one of the things that needs to be a lot more typical is there was an armed, law-abiding,
civilian,
trained, sane civilian. He wasn't a cop. He was never in the military. 22-year-old guy with a legal concealed gun engages this guy within like 15 seconds.
40 yards out?
They're saying it's 40 yards. We're going to talk about that. That's the only part I'm a little...
Well, just because you can't hit anything at 40 yards.
40 yards. Anyway, good for this guy. Long-distance shots. 8 out of 10 hit the target. Nobody else was injured. Stopped this guy immediately so that he unfortunately harmed 3 people, killed 3 people, and he didn't kill anybody else because we had a sane, trained, law-abiding gun owner with a concealed firearm that he had for self-defense. Mm-hmm. And this guy, by all accounts, was amazingly calm, was amazingly accurate, was stepped right up to the plate and said, this is not going to happen while I'm here.
And he didn't have any trouble giving out his name. He gave it to the media. He wasn't trying to hide because he felt what he did, was truly right.
And law enforcement, Eli Dicken.
Right.
And law enforcement on the scene at the press conference called him a hero. He was described as a good Samaritan, which I think is kind of interesting.
The mall is thinking about prosecuting because it was a gun-free.
Well,
I haven't
heard that, but it's not illegal in that state to carry.
Right.
So
it's one. I think it's just one log. I mean, just one opinion towards another.
It's like it would be in California. It's not; those signs are meaningless in
right,
California.
Right.
So
exactly.
It doesn't matter.
It's simply a request.
But it just put the left back 20 feet.
Well, Shannon Watts from Moms Demand Action. I still think that's the most ridiculous name in the world. Moms Demand Action. It sounds like it sounds like an adult video series, Dave. Am I the only one that did anybody think this through? Anyway. So, I mean, when we picked our name, San Diego County Gun Owners, there's no guessing.
No video out of that one.
You can't make a video out of that. But Moms Demand Action. Anyway.
You got to go on a date.
So Shannon, maybe it was Shannon.
Yeah, maybe.
So Shannon Watts, she, spouted off on Twitter about how horrible the situation was that somebody was successfully able to defend themselves and described it as him having, illegally having this gun. And it's simply not true.
Right.
Not illegal. He did everything right. And I really, truly, this thing took off because there were 3 people killed in a public place at a mall. And boom, everybody reports on it. But then the fact that it was stopped, boom, within seconds, it's out of the news cycle.
Oh, it's out so fast.
Now, why didn't we have, the only people still talking about it are the hens on, the old hens on The View.
Right.
And they're giving false information that he was illegally carrying his gun. But we need to continue to talk about this guy.
I was going to bring it up if it wasn't in the outline because it's so important, and especially after hearing how many people whose lives have been saved, by another person having a firearm or the person that was either attacked having a firearm. And I agree with you, whether they shoot it or not.
Right.
Because I had a friend of mine go to a 7-Eleven. I would have never gone up against this guy. He's like 6'5", burly, had a big beard. And some guy followed him from the 7-Eleven back to his truck. And he gets in his truck, and the guy takes a knife and sticks it in the window. Says, "Give me all your money." And he pulls out a Smith & Wesson and puts it on the guy's forehead. He says, "How bad do you want it?" And the guy took off.
That was that, huh?
And he was very calm, cool, and collected about it. He says, "I probably wouldn't have shot him, but I figured the fear factor is what changed his mind."
There you go, 3 million and one.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Well, we're reaching out to him. We want to see if we can get him on the show and talk to him. And it is tough. Like, this might be this guy's worst day of his whole life.
Could
you know, and I don't want to forget that.
Well, just think how he feels now. He took a life.
Yeah, well, exactly. And despite this person was committing a horrible, heinous act. But still, this could be this guy's worst day. So I'm happy that he was able to stop this carnage. He was able to help people. I'm happy that this guy was such a hero. But we're looking forward to talking to him, and I just hope that we don't.
You're actually going to get him?
We're trying to, but I just keep thinking to myself, geez, making this guy relive the worst day of his life. I don't know. Maybe he's fine.
Well, hopefully he'll look at it as we're talking about it. And the reason we're bringing him on is to educate the masses, and if he takes it that way,
right,
then it's a win-win.
Which, like I said, I'm looking forward to it. I just obviously want to be really, really sensitive to this guy. But
do I have to be?
I would like you to be sensitive to anything, Dave.
Anything
try.
At all. I'll try. I'll have to really try. All right. Hey,
but before we go to break, so we're going to talk about this. When we come back, I want to talk about the two extremely important points that we need to take away from this. There are two very important points we need to take away from this.
I totally agree.
I want to maybe look at it as, hey, Mike's going to give us some talking points, or maybe a way of talking about this.
Yeah, it's not a mic drop.
No, not at all.
Boy, if this isn't the truth. Do you have trouble fitting in workouts into your busy schedule? Well, you got to try Leo Fit, and so do I. Because Leo Fit is a super high-tech gym that delivers the benefits of 3 to 6 hours of traditional strength training in just 2 20-minute sessions a week. Yes, that sounds hard to believe, but because the machines are computer-controlled, they deliver the maximum weight you can safely handle by the second. That's how you get the highest possible return on your fitness investment. You'll also have a trainer with you, so you're not going to be doing this by yourself. Founded by Leo Hamill of the jewelry store fame, Leo Fit guarantees increased metabolism. You said metabolism. That's it. Strength and fitness in every session. You will not understand how effective it is until you try it. 20 minutes twice a week replace hours of weightlifting and aerobics. And according to Leo, you don't sweat.
Well,
no, he said you won't sweat.
I sweat a little bit.
Well, you sweat getting up. Sign up today at their website at leofitlabs.com or type LeoFit in your browser for more information and sign up for a free session.
You could go there in like work clothes and
well, that's what Leo says he does. He goes out of his office, goes in,
he does. You reasonably could do that. I don't want to make, but I sweat a little bit. I sweat
thinking about it.
Yeah, just
thinking about it.
Sometimes sweating makes me sweat. So
yeah,
I mean, I'll like you could put me in a walk-in freezer and I'll figure out a way to sweat.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're talking about the self-defense incident in Indiana that happened. Was that a week ago? 2 weeks ago?
What do you think? When was it?
Last week. All right.
Last week. Okay.
Now, what was your take on it? Since I blurted out my thought.
My take on what?
The whole experience.
I think it was a great thing that he did, and it was fortunate that he was there to do it, or a lot more people would have been killed. I thought it was outrageous that these leftists, that's not unexpected, it's just outrageous, jumped all over that and said, well, it's a bad thing because he shot the guy, and because they were, like Michael was saying, they were talking about the Good Samaritan thing. But I would talk about training. We'll talk about that a little bit later here, I think, about the training and, what he did. Michael said he was going to talk about that shot. So at that distance.
I just want to. Well, all right. Well, let's talk. I'm going to make a prediction.
Okay.
I'm going to make a prediction. I think that after everything's all fully investigated and it comes out, I don't think it was a 40-yard shot.
And
you're just having such a problem with this 40-yard shot.
Well, that could very well be,
but still,
everybody says, "Oh God, that's so far," and it's not. Yeah, it is. But I mean, if I don't know anything about how this guy trains or shoots or what he does, but I mean, realistically, if you shoot a reasonable amount and you practice that, at longer distances. It's not too bad. I mean, I did it the other day just to see if I could do it.
Yeah, well, and it's not a headshot.
No, and
it was body shots.
And again, and I wasn't under any pressure like he was. But it's not. I mean, if you're good with that stuff and you shoot and you practice, I mean, that's not that outrageous. And in a mall,
what was he?
yards
What was he?
Far.
What was he shooting? What was he
I
shooting?
don't know. I didn't. Did you
Unconfirmed reports. I don't even know if I should say this because they're unconfirmed.
It's unconfirmed.
Unconfirmed
Doesn't stop anybody
reports.
else.
Yeah, really. Completely unconfirmed. I don't know this for a fact, but I'm hearing whispers that he was shooting a Springfield Hellcat in 9mm.
Mm-hmm.
So
iron sights, right?
I don't know. That I don't know. He's
all
22
confirmed.
though, so maybe. But I don't know. I just think they're going to come out and be like, it's actually 23 yards.
It
or
could be.
something.
'Cause that kind of stuff happens all the time.
That happens all the time. But that doesn't take anything away from what this guy did. And his ability to do it. Okay, so there's two things. Two things I want to make that you really, really have to emphasize when you tell this story. Number one, this really isn't rare. Because like we said, 1.5 million times to 3 million times a year, somebody uses a firearm as self-defense. So if someone does, try to say, well, that's your one example. No, that's not the one example. That's just the one that they decided to, that's the one that accidentally got into the headlines.
Right.
Because they were hoping it was going to go another way.
Yeah. That's the only reason.
And it's proof positive that, it went into the headlines and then, oh my gosh, a civilian, a 22-year-old civilian, no less, with no military and no law enforcement history, was able to do such a successful job of stopping this. Boom, immediately falls out of the headlines.
In 14 seconds.
Well, too, if it was only one victim there, say he got there a little bit sooner or something like that, you may not have heard about that at all. Because again, it would have been a local story, and because it didn't go the way that the media would prefer it to go, you may not have heard about it at all.
If you look at the timeline, there was it was reported that someone with a semi-auto, someone with an AR, shot at a mall, 3 people dead. Mm-hmm. They covered it. It was all over the place. CNN, ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox, everybody, all over the place. And then they did the press conference, and the chief of police said, "Yeah, a civilian stopped this. He's a hero." And they said, "Oh, we're done. See you later. Let's get on to Kim Kardashian, who got another piercing in her ear."
And she bought 2 jets, and she went 13 miles.
Yeah, whatever. So that's proof positive that they really, truly, Okay, so that's important. Number one is this is not an isolated incident. This isn't weird. This isn't the only time this has ever happened. It's just a very, very clear example and one that just happened to make it to the headlines. That's number one. And number two is the fact that someone who isn't law enforcement and isn't military did such a great job. And this kid, he's 22. I mean, the anti-gun folks want to ban guns from people that are just a year younger than him, right? So, I mean, this flies in the face of everything that they say and supports everything that we've always said. And so it's not an isolated incident, and it's a perfect example of everything that we've been saying. We've never said that, hey, if everybody owns a gun, there will be no crime. We've never said that. What we have said is that if someone is there and able to respond, that there won't be 100 victims. They'll be able to stop it before it turns into a truly mass murder, which is really what happened here. I mean, depending on how you define a mass murder. Unfortunately, 3 people were killed. 4 people if you include the shooter. Or not the shooter. There were 2 shooters. There was a good guy and a bad guy. But this is truly a good guy with a gun stopping a bad guy with a gun. A young man, a civilian, a trained CCW holder, abiding by the law, following the law. Is such a perfect example. So those 2 things. When you talk about this, talk about those 2 things. That hey, this is just another example. This is an example of the 1.5 to 3 million times a year that someone defends against a horrible, heinous, violent crime. And 2, it's a perfect example of why people need to at least have the opportunity and choice to keep and bear arms.
So if I hope I'm not jumping ahead, but it said the first victim had a firearm and was not able to use it.
I don't know that. I don't know that.
That's our producer.
I don't know that. I haven't read that. I apologize.
Yeah, I did. I just happened to notice it, and I didn't hear anything about that as well.
But what people should learn is obviously, the self-defense part of it, and the public policy.
Right. And the emphasis on training.
We think so. Part of me, Joe, how I'd almost going to be disappointed if we do get an interview out of this guy and he's like, yeah, I don't know, I just bought it yesterday.
Oh, wouldn't that be terrible? 40 yards? Oh, yeah, I do that all the time. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, we do see people like that, though. I mean, we'll see them in class from time to time, and there are people
natural
that are
talent,
just good like that. Yeah, I don't know if that's. Yeah, they're just. I don't
well,
know.
I think I've told you the story about my wife. I took her out very first time. Never shot a gun. Never held a gun.
Mm-hmm.
First, it was a Smith & Wesson 9mm, and she did it in about a 3-inch grouping, and then I gave her a shotgun, and it was 4-inch grouping, and I gave her a revolver. Same thing. Never shot a gun before in her life.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't scared. Wasn't intimidated. Just.
Yeah, and I'd heard this guy had been shooting. I guess I'd heard his grandfather taught him or something.
Right.
So I'm guessing he'd been shooting, semi-regularly, at least since he was a kid. But, Bill just showed me a video the other day of two of his students, husband and wife, and I think it was the first time she was shooting, and she was doing great, knocking down plate ranks.
Well, don't they
everything.
normally say the women are a lot easier to train than the guys?
Women listen. That's the difference.
Okay, all complaints go to 1-800-JOE, 1-800-JOE for all complaints.
Women are more likely to listen to what you say and then try it, as opposed to, guys, like we'll get one of the things that are real common. You'll see sometimes you'll see men put their finger up around the front of the trigger guard, and apparently that used to be a big deal in the 80s, and it works good. I guess if you have if you got big hands and a small gun, it might work a little bit, but your hand is stronger with your fingers together on that thing, and I might suggest something like that, and a woman will most likely, and just put her hand where it's supposed to be.
Where you
as
put
opposed to, I've been shooting this way for a while, and I'm looking at the target, and the shots are like all over the place. Been shooting this way for a while, and it seems like, okay, good.
Yeah.
It's sometimes they're easier to teach.
But it's an amazing story. It needs to be told. We need to
over
focus on
and
it.
over and over again.
I don't know what exactly is going on as far as, is this guy going to do interviews or what's going on there? But
I haven't seen him on. I mean, if he's going to be on anything, he'd be on, of course, the conservative stations. Well,
that's the thing, yeah, because you're not going to see him on the usual circuit.
He won't be on The View,
CNN and The View and all that.
Yeah, he won't be on The
View. But he may be on Sean Hannity and those guys.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
He'll be on with Waters or Tucker. I'm probably Tucker Carlson if it's
anybody.
You would
think, yeah.
This guy, one story is reporting that his girlfriend said that he pushed her to safety before he started shooting. This guy's like
I think I read
he's
that.
He's a hero.
This guy's never going to buy a drink in that town ever again.
Yeah, and I guarantee you he went 40 yards.
And then, like the New York Times put out a story after Indiana Mall shooting, one hero, but no lasting solution. Why is that not a lasting solution?
No lasting solution.
Why is that not a lasting? I think it's a growing solution. More and more people.
Yeah.
We're headed towards 7,000 people in San Diego. When we started off, there was 1,000
that
had CCWs. I'd say it's absolutely a lasting
And if
solution.
I was a criminal, I'd be nervous with that number.
They should. They've done, the FBI did a series of interviews of folks in jail. I think it was the FBI. This might have been FSU as well. But there was a survey done of people in jails, and you know what their number one fear is? Their number one fear as a professional criminal? An armed victim.
Sure.
But by far. Not dogs, not going to jail.
Not even cops.
Not hurting someone, not cops, an armed victim.
Yeah, I think the reasoning was a little weird, but yeah, I think I've seen that too.
Well,
but I won't reveal the reasoning to you. But
what do you mean?
They said they were afraid. They're more afraid of armed citizens than they are police, because the comment was that the armed citizen isn't as trained and disciplined and might shoot them, whereas the cop is less likely to shoot them, which is a good indication why they're in prison.
Thanks for watching this clip from Gun Owners Radio. You can watch us live every Sunday from 4 to 6 p.m. California time, right here on our YouTube channel, or if you're in the San Diego area, you can listen to us on 1170 a.m. We're also available on your favorite podcast platform for free. Don't forget to like and subscribe so that you can help restore and protect the Second Amendment, not just in California, but across the country.